Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. I'm Kevin Coop, and Tom Furphy, you are in Vegas?
Live on location at Groceryshop
Wow.
2022.
So you're at the Mandalay Bay, am I right?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Although there is no bay here. There's no bay. No.
I know, it's Vegas. It's all desert. There isn't even
There's a big swimming pool.
There isn't even Lake Mead anymore, right? Isn't it all drying up?
That's right. That's right. No, we're at Mandalay Bay. I hear there's about 4,000 attendees, so it's pretty good size show. I guess it's a number where it can still be intimate. You can run into everybody you want to run into and kind of get your hands wrapped around it. But certainly a sign of where grocery e-commerce is and is going.
And we should say, as we record this, it's really just starting. So yeah. What we'll do is we'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll sort of do a debrief and we'll talk about reflections afterwards. Yeah. So, but going in and you go in as somebody who is both a vendor, but for purposes of our conversation, your media. Sorry, you're covering it for Morning Newsbeat. So, what are the big themes that you're kind of seeing or anticipating as you start?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a few themes that do seem to be developing here that aren't necessarily kind of forced by the conference organizers. Last night was our kind of first night, a few different receptions and whatnot, so you kind of get a really good feel for where this was going to head. Lots of discussions around retail media networks, right? You've had lots of reporting on it. We've talked about these. Amazon's ad business last year was 31 billion. It's growing like crazy. Heck, Amazon's ad business is probably going to be between 40, definitely more than 40 billion this year, which is just insane. You look at Amazon's ad business even relative to the ad business of all print periodicals, and it's crazy how much Amazon's commanding of that. But lots of discussion around what other retailers are doing, lots of discussion around the technologies that retailers are using to deliver that experience. And another kind of big theme too is around data, right? And how do we measure both performance of media, performance of the things we're launching in the digital space, but also how do we measure customers kind of across all the ways that they shop, right? Because today your best customers as a retailer are shopping you in many ways, and so what are the capabilities that are out there, to be able to measure that shopper, be it different types of panel data, be it tracking of shoppers across these channels, different analytics and whatnot. So I think that's a big theme. And then I think the third theme that a lot of folks are talking about is the evolution of Instacart. We are starting to hear, you've published a story, and I think it made news the last few days, really building on the theme of the last kind of couple quarters, in that they want to be a technology company to their customers, in addition to being a retail marketplace and being a fulfillment solution. And so just lots of discussion about, hey, did you hear that from Instacart? What are you hearing? You can imagine a company like that with the consumer reach that they have and the credibility that they have. They're just creating a lot of it's a topic that folks are very aware of, whether you're a retailer and thinking about this, kinder, gentler Instacart that can actually help you serve your customers, not their customers. But then also all the competitive technologies that are here, wondering what that means for them. So I would say, initially those are kind of the three themes that I'm seeing, and the other thing that has become very clear over the last couple of these is that e-commerce is not a novelty. E-commerce is not this kind of new, scary, sandboxy R&D thing, for retailers. It's the real deal. You've got chief merchants here, you've got CEOs here, you've got CTOs here. It's a main part of how people do business, and I think the show really reflects how serious people are taking it.
Yeah. When it comes to data, when you talk about it the way you just did, it seems to me that, one of the real leaps here, and it's the kind of thing that retailers have to pay attention to, is that data analysis always seemed to me to be a matter of extrapolation, right? You had certain amounts of data, and then you'd have to extrapolate from that.
Yeah.
So sometimes successfully, and sometimes not as much so. But now the data seems to be a lot more granular. I mean, there's a lot more companies out there that are accumulating it. There's a lot more companies out there that are analyzing it. And it is a lot more specific and therefore actionable by both retailers and vendors. Is that fair?
I think it's fair. And I think there are probably a number of solutions where you have a big enough data set where you can actually track, most or a lot of actual activities.
Right.
So on digital, right, it's great because you can, although it's getting tougher to track individual customers now with privacy rules.
Right.
So, there is still a fair amount of piecing together the data I see happening here, on my digital site, to, what customers, are, how customers are being measured externally. There's still a lot of panel stuff that happens externally, although with digital, you can reach a lot more customers, with a lot more specificity, reaching those panel customers.
Right. Well, and in the case of what Instacart announced this week, that whole connected store suite of things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're basically trying to kind of bridge that gap in a lot of ways.
Well, we in our world, we are working with retailers that work with Instacart and it's the old NDA stuff, but retailers are definitely thinking that way. Aggressive retailers are. They're thinking about, my store experience. They're thinking about how I can link my customers' store activities and loyalty data from store, integrate that with their e-commerce activity, how I can cross promote between store and e-com, and ultimately have that, it's such an overused term, but that seamless customer experience, across these mediums. And it's those retailers that are able to build these true linkages that are going to have the best data, right? And with them having the best data, they should be in the pole position to go win, to bring manufacturer programming dollars, into the world to reach these customers.
Well, I mean, doesn't that have to be the goal in the sense that, I mean, Amazon can be incredibly granular, right? I mean, it's connecting everything. Walmart moving in that direction too. I got to imagine Target is making the same kinds of moves. So if you look at those big companies, and Kroger's in the same position, Albertsons is going in that direction. If you're below that top tier of retailers, if you're not trying to aim for more granular data and actually acting on it, then you're giving up an enormous advantage. And it would seem to me that the Instacart acquisition of Rosie then makes this stuff available to much smaller companies. I mean, again, I don't know how the economics of it play out yet. I don't think they know yet, but because it hasn't actually happened.
Right.
But the idea is to make all this available even to the smallest retailers.
Well, it would have been hard for them to reach smaller retailers without that. They've got a platform that they acquired a few years ago. It's a very enterprise scale platform.
Right.
Yes, it can be deployed to these smaller retailers. That takes a skill set, a sales force, that has to be relatively massive. And there are so many of these smaller retailers out there, that acquiring that customer base is hugely valuable.
Right.
There's probably other smaller platform providers out there that Instacart should be looking at.
Right.
They're as they go IPO, as they have pretty good war chest of funding. It does make sense that there are a few technology companies that ultimately win as the big guys in the space, and that always happens, right? You always end up with relatively fragmented space early, and then there's a few power players that accumulate folks. I mean, you think just back in how much IBM did in retail back in the day. Who's going to be like kind of this generation's kind of operating system or key operating systems for retail? I think Instacart, just given their customer base and their e-com shops and the connectivity to what is a pain point of fulfillment, they're in a good spot to go claim a bunch of that, even though they're kind of coming from behind. You look at other companies like Microsoft or Oracle, they all should have a shot at this. You just don't see them being as clearly aggressive, at least in the grocery space.
Yeah.
As Instacart is.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. One of the things that would seem to me that I would think that you'd see a bunch of wholesalers. I don't know that have any wholesalers left anymore, right? But I would think that you'd see a lot of wholesalers there because they're ideally, whether it's the CNSs or the Nash Finches, whoever, who are Spartan Nash. Boy, I just hated myself. Right, not Nash Finch. Spartan Nash, who are out there, who are in the position to sort of address those needs for their smaller customers and kind of create mass where there is none.
Well, I mean, they do serve that consolidating factor or function, and that scale function, that medium and small retailers, need. And I do think that they could be in a good position to offer technology solutions. I don't see them doing that much of it.
Right.
And I think that that's a massive missed opportunity for them. And I think if they were to do it and be relatively proficient at it, they actually could go up market, because I think that there's a fair number of, even call it, I don't know, second tier, larger regionals, what they could really use that. They could really use that third-party support, because the landscape's changing so fast. And, there are a lot of retailers have really good tech teams and, have good data science and good product people. There's a lot of retailers that just don't. And it's a key function. Like, I think, in a world now where, 5, 10, 15, 20+% of your volume is going to be really digital, you're leading, call it product people, right? That are responsible for owning and building these tech offerings are pretty key roles.
The retail media network part of it. I mean, it seems to me that, again, there's going to be, if you're below a certain size, right? The temptation is going to be to say, oh yeah, should put the TVs in, do the whole thing, put it, we'll link into your system and just write us a check, as opposed to really kind of using them as a tool, right? Isn't that going to, that's going to be the divide, it seems to me.
Oh yeah.
Where some retailers are going to see it as a revenue opportunity, and some retailers are going to see it as a kind of broader connectivity opportunity where they can really kind of get intimate with their shoppers and really make something of it. And that's where that'll be the divide.
And that's the extension. I love that you brought that up. That's the physical instantiation of, the retail media networks that we hear a lot about here at Groceryshop are the site marketing, really. Retail media networks is kind of a sexier name for, it's site marketing, right? It's sponsored search. It's sponsored placements. It's things that you can buy. It's advertising you can buy on the site. And because your site and your network is visible, or your user base is visible, it becomes effectively a network,
right,
where you're connecting content and dollars to your customer. But I love the idea of that bringing that media into the store, whether that's through a range of hardware in the store, right? So it could be from point of sale terminals, it could be video screens, in the store, it could be something at the shelf, but digitizing that physical experience. I think that could get, that could be a really value added touch point for retailers with customers. Imagine, if in the produce section, you had short snippet pieces running, either highlighting the growers, where it came from, which makes it, it really, I think, fortifies the experience, or, whether you had really kind of short form recipe, inspiring recipes, where you can see, a recipe being put together in the amount of time that it takes you to, walk a produce department and get you some inspiration, and have a QR code there, or QR code on even just sitting there at the shelf that says, hey, scan this, and, based on the time you scan it, it'll know the content you were seeing, and link you to that video on your device. Yeah, I think there's some really probably cool ways to do that, almost add personalization to the physical experience, by using these digital capabilities in romance.
Yeah. I mean, it seems lately that so many commercials that I see on television, right, have QR codes. You see a QR code, right? And so they're making their pitch, but then there's a little QR code in the bottom left or bottom right-hand corner, and they want you to click on that. And so as soon as you do that, they're eliminating the seam between the two experiences, right? Which is what you're talking about. And then if I've done that in the store with my smartphone and I've made that connection, well, they know a lot more about me suddenly.
Yeah.
And are able to then not only provide me with the recipe, but are able to look at my shopping habits and be able to say, hey, Kevin, you should try this, or we notice you buy chicken 4 times, 5 times a month. We have a suite of chicken recipes and or whatever. And so, I mean, it seems to me that's going to be the sweet spot. And the retailers that don't use it for that are just giving up this gold mine.
There's so much power in that. And a quick sponsored interlude. We do that at Replenium. It's awesome. To be able to, there's not much happening in the media world yet, but, there could be a toothpaste commercial on. The tag comes up in the corner, you scan it, and you're connected into that toothpaste. But better, your register receipt when you leave the checkout. You scan your register receipt, and everything that you have in there becomes eligible for auto replenishment. Or you're out of shelf, and it says, hey, you can save 5% on this today, by putting it on auto replenishment. So, and that's not just for auto replenishment. It could be for recipes, for other loyalty. There's all kinds of exciting ways that you can link the physical and digital experiences together. And QR codes is the kind of accepted way today to do that. Everybody knows how to use them. Your camera's smart enough that you just have to put your camera on and recognize it's a QR code that does its thing. Like, you don't have to have a scanner app or anything.
Yeah. Well, and that shows you how fast things change, right? Because before the pandemic, I think most people thought QR codes that was ancient history, and suddenly they became the tool du jour, where everybody knew how to do it because you needed them to be able to do so many things during the pandemic.
Yep.
All right, listen. Well, you have a lot to do, I wish I were there with you, but listen.
I know, we got to get you one of these.
I've done one, and one grocery shop. For whatever reason, things tend to get in the way. I was there wasn't I there because there was a grocery shop at the same time as National Grocers Association, I think, couple of years ago.
Yes, there was.
And so I didn't have a conflict because I was in the same city. So anyway, well, listen, have a great time. And I would be remiss if not to point out that last time we talked 2 weeks ago, we were sort of crossing our fingers about the Mets, and now as we talk, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're in the playoffs, but nobody's breathing easy yet. We got to win the division.
So you're not going to a sports betting window and betting on them to win the World Series?
No, but I am going to bet on the Jets to win another game.
One more. Hey, listen, have a great time.
Thank you, Kevin.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.